by H. T. Francis. Source. Adapted from archaic translation by H. T. Francis. Jakata number 525. Culla-sutasoma-jataka. Good friends, etc. This story the master while residing at Jetavana monastery told concerning the perfect exercise of self-abnegation. The introductory story corresponds with that of the Mahanaradikashyapa birth. Once upon a time what is now Benares was a city called Sutasana, and in it lived King Brahmadatta. His chief wife gave birth to the Bodhisattva. His face was glorious as the full moon, and therefore he was named Somakumara. When he arrived at years of discretion, owing to his fondness for soma juice and his habit of pouring offerings of it, men knew him as Sutasoma. When he was of age, he was instructed in the liberal arts at Taxila. And on his return home he was presented with a white umbrella by his father and ruled his kingdom righteously and owned a vast dominion. And he had 16,000 wives with Chandadevi as chief wife. In due course of time when he was blessed with a numerous family, he grew discontented with domestic life and retired into a forest, desiring to embrace the ascetic rule. One day he summoned his barber and thus addressed him, "When you see a grey hair on my head, you are to tell me." The barber agreed to do so, and in due course of time he saw a grey hair and told him of it. The king said, "Then, Sir Barber, pull it out and place it in my hand." The barber picked it out with a pair of golden tweezers and laid it in his hand. The great being, when he saw it, exclaimed, "My body is a prey to old age," and in a fright he took the grey hair and descending from the terrace he seated himself on a throne placed in the sight of the people. Then he summoned 80,000 councillors headed by his general and 60,000 Brahmins headed by his priest and many others of his subjects and citizens and said to them, "A grey hair has appeared on my head. I am an old man, and you are to know that I am become an ascetic," and he repeated the first stanza. "Good friends and citizens assembled here. Listen, my trusty advisers, to me. Now that grey hairs upon my head appear. From now on it is my will a monk to be." On hearing this each one of them in a fit of dejection repeated this stanza. Such random words as these in uttering. You are making an arrow move in my heart. Remember your 700 wives, O king. What will become of them, should you depart? Then the great being spoke the third stanza. Their sorrows soon another will console. For they are young in years and fair to see. But I am bent upon a heavenly goal. And so right glad am I a monk to be. His advisers, being unable to answer the king, went to his mother and told her about it. She came in hot haste and asking him, "Is this true what they say, dear son, that you long to be an ascetic?" She repeated 2 stanzas. Ill-fated was the day, alas, that I was hailed as mother to a son like you. For regardless of my tears and bitter cry, you are resolved, O king, a monk to be. Cursed was the day, alas, that I, O Sutasoma dear, gave birth to you. For regardless of my tears and bitter cry, you are resolved, O king, a monk to be." While his mother thus mourned, the Bodhisattva uttered not a word. She remained apart all by herself, weeping. Then they told his father. And he came and repeated a single stanza. "What is this law that leads you to become eager to quit your kingdom and your home? Whither your old parents left behind to dwell? Here all alone, seek'st you a hermit's cell?" On hearing this the great being held his peace. Then his father said, "My dear Sutasoma, even though you have no affection for your parents, you have many young sons and daughters. They will not be able to live without you. At the very moment when they are grown up, will you become an ascetic?" And he repeated the 7th stanza. But you have many a child, I think, and all of tender years. When you no longer may be seen, what sorrow will be theirs? Hearing this, the great being repeated a stanza. Yes, I have many a child, I think, of tender years are they. With them full long though I have been, I now must part for sure. Thus did the great being teach the law to his father. And when he heard his exposition of the law, he held his peace. Then they told his 700 wives. And they, descending from the palace tower, came into his presence, and embracing his feet they made crying and repeated this stanza. Your heart in sorrow, sure, must break, or pity is to you unknown, that you can holy orders take, and leave us here to weep alone. The great being, on hearing their crying as they threw themselves at his feet and cried aloud, repeated yet another stanza. My heart in sorrow may not break, though I feel pity for your pain, but holy orders I must take, that I may heavenly bliss attain. Then they told his queen wife. And she being heavy with child, though her time was well near come, approached the great being and saluting him stood respectfully on one side and repeated 3 stanzas. Ill-fated was the day, alas, that I, O Sutasoma dear, married you. For regardless of my tears and bitter cry, you were resolved, O king, a monk to be. Cursed was the day, alas, that I, O Sutasoma dear, married you. For you would leave me in my suffering to die. Determined as you are a monk to be. The hour of my delivery is near, and I would glad my lord should stay with me, until my child is born, before that I see the sad day that I am without you. Then the great being repeated a stanza. The hour of your delivery is near. Until the babe is born, I'll stay with you. Then will I leave the royal little devil and fly far from the world a holy monk to be. On hearing his words she was no longer able to control her grief, and holding her heart with both her hands, said, From now on, my lord, our glory is no more. Then wiping away her tears she loudly mourned. The great being to console her repeated a stanza. My queen, with eye like ebon flower, dear Chanda, weep not you for me, but climb once more your palace tower. I go without one care for you. Being unable to bear his words she mounted the palace tower and sat there weeping. Then the Bodhisattva's elder son seeing it said, Why does my mother sit here weeping? And he repeated this stanza in the form of a question. Who has annoyed you, mother dear? Why do you weep and stare at me? Whom of my family that I see here must I, even if all wrong, kill for you? Then the queen uttered this stanza. No harm, dear son, may touch his head, who lives to work such suffering for me. For know it was your sire who said, I go without one care for you. Hearing her words he said, Dear mother, what is this that you say? If this be so, we shall be helpless, and making crying he spoke this stanza. I who once ranged the park to see wild elephants engage in fight. If my dear sire a monk should be, what should I do, poor luckless creature? Then his younger brother who was 7 years old, when he saw them both weeping, came near to his mother and said, My dear ones, why do you weep? And hearing the cause he said, Well, cease to weep. I will not allow him to become an ascetic. And he comforted them both. And with his nurse, coming down from the palace tower, he went to his father and said, Dear father, they tell me you are leaving us against our will and say you will be an ascetic. I will not allow you to become an ascetic, and clasping his father firmly by the neck he uttered this stanza. My mother, lo, is weeping and my brother gladly would keep you still. I too will hold you by the hand, nor let you go against our will. The great being thought, "This child is a source of danger to me. By what means am I to get rid of him?" Then looking at his nurse he said, "Good nurse, see this jewel ornament. This is yours. Only take away the child, that he be not a hindrance to me." And being unable by himself to get rid of the child who held him by the hand, he promised her a bribe and repeated this stanza: "Up nurse and let the little boy play with him in some other place. Otherwise by chance he should mar my joy, and hinder in my heavenward race." She took the bribe and comforting the child she went with him to another place, and thus mourning repeated this stanza: "What now if I reject outright? I need it not, this jewel bright? For should my lord a hermit be, what use would jewels be to me?" Then his commander-in-chief thought, "This king, I think, has come to the conclusion that he has but little treasure in his house. I will let him know he has a great quantity." So standing up he saluted him and repeated this stanza: "Your coffers filled with treasure vast. Great wealth have you, O king, amassed. The world is all subdued by you. You take your ease. No hermit be." Hearing this, the great being repeated this stanza: "My coffers filled with treasures vast. Great wealth has been by me amassed. The whole world is subdued by me. I leave it all a monk to be." When he had departed on hearing this, a rich merchant named Culla-sutasoma-jataka stood up and saluting the king repeated this stanza: "Great wealth have I, O king, amassed. Beyond all power of understanding vast. See I give it all to you. You take your ease. No hermit be." On hearing this the great being repeated a stanza: "O Culla-sutasoma-jataka, I know. Your wealth to me you would give. But I a heavenly goal would win. So I renounce this world of sin." As soon as Culla-sutasoma-jataka had heard this and was gone, he thus addressed his younger brother Soma-jataka: "Dear brother, I am as discontented as a wild cock in a cage. My dislike to household life gets the better of me. This very day will I become a hermit. Do you undertake to rule this kingdom?" And handing it over to him he repeated this stanza: "O Soma-jataka, sure I feel strange disgust over my senses steal, at thought of my obsessive sins. Today my hermit life begins." On hearing these words Soma-jataka too longed to be a hermit, and to make this clear he repeated another stanza: "Dear Sutasoma, go and dwell, as it pleases you in hermit cell. I too a hermit gladly would be, for life were nothing apart from you." Then in refusing this Sutasoma repeated a half stanza: "You may not go, all through the land. Home life would all come to a stand." On hearing this the people threw themselves down at the feet of the great being and, mourning, said, "Should Sutasoma go away, what would become of us, we ask?" Then the great being said, "Well, grieve not. Though I have been long with you, I shall now have to part from you. There is no permanence in any existing thing." And teaching the law to the people, he said, "Like water through a sieve, our day, so brief alas, fast slips away. With life thus circumscribed, I think, no room for carelessness is seen. Like water through a sieve, our day, so brief alas, fast slips away. With life thus circumscribed all round, only the fool is careless found. Bound fast by lusts, in which they fell, such men enlarge the bounds of hell, crowd the brute world and realm of ghosts, and multiply the demon armies." Thus did the great being instruct the people in the law. And climbing to the top of the palace of flowers he stood on the 7th story, and with a sword he cut off his top knot and cried, "I am now nothing to you. Choose you a king of your own." And with these words he threw his top knot, turban and all, into the midst of the people. The people seized hold of it, And as they rolled over and over on the ground they loudly mourned. And a cloud of dust rose at this spot to a great height. And the people stepping back stood and looked at it, and said, "The king must have cut off his top knot and thrown it, turban and all, into the midst of the crowd, and therefore it is that a cloud of dust has risen near the palace." And mourning they uttered this stanza: "The cloud of dust, see how it towers, hard by the royal house of flowers. Famed king of right, I think, our lord, has cut his locks off with a sword." But the great being sent an attendant and had all the necessities for an ascetic brought to him, and had a barber to remove his hair and beard. And throwing his magnificent robe on a couch he cut off strips of dyed cloth. And putting on these yellow patches he fastened an earthen bowl on the top of his left shoulder, and with a monk's staff in his hand he paced backwards and forwards on the topmost story. And then descending from the palace tower he stepped out into the street, but no one recognized him as he went. Then his 700 royal wives ascending the tower and not finding him, but seeing only the bundle of his adornments, came down and told the other 16,000 women, saying, "Mighty Sutasoma, your dear lord, has become an ascetic," and loudly mourning they went out. At this moment the people learned that he had become an ascetic, and the whole city was greatly stirred. And the people said, "They tell us, our king has become a monk." And they assembled at the palace door, and crying, "The king must be here or there," they ran to all the places frequented by him, and not finding the king they wandered to and fro, uttering their mourn in these stanzas. Here are his golden palace towers, all hung with wreaths of scented flowers. We're surrounded with many a lady fair. Our king would many times go. Here wreathed with flowers and wrought of gold. His hall with sloping roof one may see, where, all his family by his side, our king would move in all his pride. This is his garden bright with flowers, through all the seasons changing hours. We're surrounded, his lake overspread with lotus blue, haunt of wild birds, here comes in view, where, all his family." Thus did the people utter crying in these various places, and then returning to the palace yard they repeated this stanza: "King Sutasoma, sad to tell, has left his throne for hermit cell, and, clad in yellow, goes his way, like some lone elephant astray." Then they went on, leaving all their household gear, and taking their children by the hand they went to the Bodhisattva, and with them went their parents and young children and 16,000 dancing girls. The whole city had the appearance of a deserted place, and behind them followed the country folk. The Bodhisattva with a company covering 12 leagues set out in the direction of the Himalayas. Then Sakka, taking note of his renunciation of the world, addressing Vishwakarma said, "Friend Vishwakarma, King Sutasoma is retiring from the world. He should have a place to dwell in. There will be a huge gathering of them." And he sent him, saying, "Go and have a hermitage erected, 30 leagues long and 5 leagues broad, on the banks of the Ganges in the Himalayan country." He did so, and, providing in this hermitage all that was necessary for the ascetic life, he made a footpath straight to it and then returned to the angel world. The great being entered the hermitage by this path, and, after he himself was first of all ordained, he admitted the rest to holy orders, and in due course of time a great number was ordained, insomuch that a space of 30 leagues was filled with them. Now how the hermitage was built by Vishwakarma, and how a great number took holy orders, and how the Bodhisattva's hermitage was arranged, all this is to be understood in the way told in the Hathapala birth. In this case, if a thought of desire or any other false thought sprang up in the mind of anyone whatsoever, the great being approached him through the air, and sitting cross-legged in space he by way of advice addressed him in a couple of stanzas. Call not to mind love's sports of past, while still a smiling face you wore. Otherwise that fair city a delight should waken lust and kill you quite. Practice, without holding back, goodwill to men by night and day. So shall you win the angel home, where all that do good deeds shall come. And this company of saints abiding by his advice became destined to the Brahma world, and the story is to be told exactly as it is in the Hathapala birth. The master having concluded this discourse said, Not only now, brethren, but formerly also the Tathagata made the great renunciation, and he identified the birth. At that time the father and mother were members of the great king's court. Chanda was the mother of Rahul. The son was Saraputra. The younger son was Rahul, the nurse was Khuddaka, Kulavardhana, the rich merchant, was Kashyapa, the commander-in-chief was Moggalliyana, Prince Somadatta was Ananda, King Sutasoma was myself.